All right, hello everyone and welcome in. We are 19 days away from the NFL draft, so this feels like a good time to start once again talking about prospect profiles. If you're new to the channel, we do have a few of these already done. You can click through to the channel and access the NFL Draft 2021 playlist. You will see a variety of prospects that we've already talked about. We've talked about some of the big quarterbacks like Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. We've talked about Rashad Bateman, Jay Tufele, a bunch of different players at a bunch of different positions. So if that is your thing, heading into NFL draft weekend, that is going to be what you want to check out. And of course, always come back for more because we're not going to be able to get to a lot of prospects. Right? We've only got about 2.5 weeks-ish until the NFL draft. So we'll get through as many as we can. I'll do as many of these as I feel is necessary. We'll talk about some first-round prospects, some prospects that the Vikings could nab in the later rounds, including today's topic of discussion, and that is Kellen Mond. So he is, I think, about the fifth or sixth quarterback that I've covered. Also, if you're new here, this is not going to be like an X's and O's breakdown. There are plenty of people on the internet who do that a lot better than I can. This is more of an introduction to the player. Maybe you're a fan of the NFL draft or the NFL in general, haven't really had the opportunity to really, sort of read up on these guys. So if you're interested in some of these players, this is where you're going to want to be. So we're going to talk about Kellen Mond today. He is the quarterback from Texas A&M, senior, 6'2", 211. Those numbers are from his pro day workout. He was the number 3 dual threat quarterback in his recruiting class in 2017 behind Tua Tagovailoa and Tate Martell. One of those guys went on to be the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft last year. Tate Martell, I believe, recently in Miami is undergoing a position change from quarterback to wide receiver, so more power to him. Kellen Mond, coming out of high school, was a 4-star recruit. He originally committed to Baylor. Then he decommitted once the university was sort of flooded with scandal. And then once he got back out into the open market, his final 3, I believe, were Auburn, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. Ultimately chose Texas A&M. So a recap of the past 3 years of his career. He was a 4-year starter, but we're only doing the past 3 years as we've done with all of the prospects prior to today. 2018, played in 13 games, a 57.3 completion percentage, 3,107 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Also added 474 yards and 7 scores on the ground. 2019, 13 games again, 61.6 completion percentage, brings that up a little bit, 2,897 yards, 20 touchdowns. Those numbers dip a little. 9 interceptions, adds 500 yards on the ground with 8 touchdowns rushing. 2020 in the shortened season, plays 10 games, 63.3 completion percentage, 2,282 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's a nice low number. 294 yards on the ground with 4 touchdowns. As far as the rankings go around the draft community on the internet, I always like to introduce this, sort of give people an idea of what the experts think of this guy, or just players in general as it pertains to the NFL draft. PFF has him as quarterback number 8, and he's 102, player 102 in their system. The Draft Network has him as quarterback 6, and he is 99 in their top 100. Dane Brugler has him as quarterback 8 as well, but he is not in the top 100 for him. He falls outside of that, and Dane doesn't have anything beyond a top 100, so I wouldn't know where he would be ranked, but I'm assuming it's probably somewhere in the early 100s, if you will. I also sometimes add Tankathon to this list just because it's an easily accessible website, but they only list like five or six quarterbacks, and he's not one of them. They also only do a top 100 draft board. He's not included in that. So that gives you kind of an idea of where everybody ranks him in terms of the analytical world and the mock draft world, is that he's somewhere around player 100 when all things are considered. His pro day was not spectacular, but also not disappointing. He ran a 4.61 40-yard dash. His hands measure in at 9 3/8, arms measure in at 33.5, wingspan measures in at 79 7/8. So those are your pro day numbers for Kellen Mond, who was a 4-year starter at Texas A&M, appeared in 47 games, started 44 of them. He is the school's all-time leader in passing yards, completions, attempts, and touchdowns. He's a natural toolsy quarterback with a strong arm that will need some time to develop, but I think overall he's a pretty good candidate to sit for a year, maybe a year and a half, to learn behind somebody who's way more experienced. He's a dual threat quarterback, as you could see by the rushing totals over the course of his career at Texas A&M, but he's not going to blow you away with the dual threat. This is not a Lamar Jackson that we're talking about. This is more like, yeah, he can run kind of like a Josh Allen or even an Aaron Rodgers who can surprise you from time to time. Maybe that's not really a fair comparison to Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it's more of a Josh Allen comparison. Just he's got the athletic ability, but he's not a freak athlete like Josh Allen, if I could put it that way. Scouting reports indicate that he doesn't feel pressure well, and he might be hesitant at times to throw on his reads, as in throwing with anticipation, throwing receivers open. He might double clutch or something like that causes a delay, which causes him to get in trouble. But one thing that pops up in the scouting reports more often than not is that everybody likes his deep ball. He throws a nice laser. So those are all things to consider when evaluating Kellen Mond on your own time. If you're a fan of watching film, which I am, but I don't really want to bring it to this channel because, as of course we've already said, there are people on the internet who already exist that do that way better than I do. So that is Kellen Mond in a nutshell, an introductory crash course 101, if you will, to this prospect. In my opinion, this is probably somebody that the Vikings should target. If you're a quarterback needy team that doesn't exactly have a first round pick that is capable of achieving one of the top 5 quarterbacks in this draft class, this is a guy that you could potentially look at in the 3rd or 4th round. That is about where he's projected based on everything that I've read. So it's actually hidden by my shoulder there, projected 3rd or 4th round pick. I think probably you're going to need to take him in the 4th round if you want to get him, because the quarterback market is going to dry up rather quickly, with 5 of them potentially going in the 1st round, potentially 5 going in the top 10, which would just be absurd because he's quarterback 8 on a lot of boards. Before that, the other 2 quarterbacks, other than the top 5 that everybody knows, the other ones that rank ahead of him typically are Kyle Trask and Davis Mills from Stanford. Kyle Trask is likely going to be a 2nd round pick. Davis Mills will be a late 2nd, early 3rd. So I think you're going to need to spend at least a mid to late 3rd to get Kellen Mond off the board and onto your team. After that, you're looking at Jamie Newman and a whole bunch of project quarterbacks that won't be drafted until day 3. So Kellen Mond really is your last opportunity to secure a quarterback who could potentially be an NFL starter one day. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.